Chapter 5S, Sustainability in the Supply Chain. This is one of the shorter chapters that we'll be taking in this course. So a couple of the learning objectives that we have with this course is we're going to talk about corporate social responsibility, which is part of the triple bottom line, which we'll talk about in a moment. Sustainability, which is a very important part of today's society, and organizations can find it also very cost effective to have sustainable products. And we're going to talk about the 3 R's of sustainability. Now, corporate responsibility is something that has evolved over the last couple of decades where organizations need to be much more sensitive towards how they are treating the environment, pollution, acid rain, garbage, and energy or carbon footprinting are all major aspects of social responsibility. What has also happened too is ethical issues that we've talked about before with regards to paying, say, some of the suppliers of your coffee beans a livable wage rather than just paying them the lowest possible price for their product, and also to employees, making sure that employees can have a livable wage, although some organizations still will want to keep their labor costs to the absolute bare minimum because those costs get passed on to the consumers. So sustainability is a lot of organizations like to have what is called zero carbon footprinting. In other words, for the amount that you create in new product or in the case of oil and gas, new energy, how much energy did it take to make that? And how can you go green so that you can use electricity, which is a renewable resource, rather than even propane or oil for, say, forklifts in your warehouse. And it's also less fumes or fewer fumes and things along this line. Exhaust, etc. It used to be companies would just let it go up into the air and it would cause things like acid rain and smog and pollution and things along that line. So the triple bottom line has to do with people, the planet, and profit. Companies still need to make profits or they will simply cease to exist. They need to be considerate of, obviously, the environment and the planet and people, both their employees and people who are outside of the corporation itself. People have to breathe in that air. So in this particular case, you need to pay attention to it throughout the entire supply chain and try to maximize all 3. There are some corporations that are more emphasize more than of one of the P's than others, but these days it is generally accepted that you need to pay attention to all 3, and how much balance there is between the 3 depends on the particular corporation. So you need to determine how it affects people. You need to pay attention to the globalization. Bringing something from overseas to North America requires a lot of energy to be able to do that. Organizations are working on, believe it or not, ships that are computer controlled. That there's not people on the ships. And they would be run via satellites and be very much more efficient. And with all the extra weight that you have with the people and all the resources the people need, like all the food and all of that, it consumes way less bunker C fuel oil to transport. And it's more efficient. It's computer controlled. And they are trying out or testing this literally as we speak in this case in 2020. So you need to have materials that are environmentally responsible so that can be recycled or biodegradable, and organizations will advertise that and utilize that. Again, reducing the environmental impact, whether it be reducing gases. In my hometown, many years ago, they would extract gold from the ore, and to do that, they use arsenic. Well, what they would do is, once they were done with that process, they would put it into the water. So my hometown has a lake in the middle of it, and you think, oh, great, it'd be great to go fishing. No, the arsenic killed all the fish. Nobody would go fishing in that lake. The fish would have were damaged. We'll just put it that way. Okay. And I already talked about carbon footprinting, greenhouse gas emissions, and organizations are very conscientious about this. Walmart, I know when we go on tours, they talk about this, ways to reduce their gaseous green emissions. Or their greenhouse gas emissions, sorry, and they're very sensitive about that. Trucks use a lot of gasoline, or they, convert them to propane. Tesla has it's not out in production yet, but they have like semi trailers that are going to be electric, and they are sold out because that would save an incredible amount of oil or gas to operate them, and it would be much better for the environment. You also need to have sustainability, which is fairly obvious. You need to keep the company in business. You can't put yourself at risk of going out of business. And also at the final point, social accounting, which means you need to supplement your financial with economic. Accounting is incomplete. Accounting only looks at certain parts of the money and records that. But what you also need to pay attention to is things like lost sales, damage to your reputation, things that accountants do not measure, goodwill, on and on. So we're going to talk about the 3 R's, which are reduce, reuse, and recycle. And so in this particular case, you need to pay attention to the quality of the materials, so that if you have a lot of waste or scrap, that's not good because that goes into landfills, etc. And you need to look at new materials. For example, drywall. Drywall has literally been around for 100 years. What happens to drywall when you're done with it, when you tear a room apart or an office space? It goes into landfills, and it is not very environmentally friendly. It does not break down. It is very damaging actually to the environment. So perhaps you need to look at a different material rather than having drywall. And that's the end of the presentation, and we will move on to doing some examples. I hope you enjoyed Chapter 5S. Have a wonderful day.